places where the glaciers came down the latest.
My dog is drinking from Plum Creek here.
Yeah, so here we are with Sarge here at the Laura Ingalls Wilder Museum and Visitor Center. Besides showing you all this footage, I'm also going to psychologically analyze what it is, why we enjoy learning about someone like Laura and visiting her sites using these 4 different keywords: abstraction, home, flow, and archetypes. And we'll just kind of check in every once in a while and do that. We're also going to provide a lot of good graphics as well. Abstraction basically has to do with stuff like math, formulas, lines, equation, putting things into a simpler form, easier to understand, and especially graphs, especially something that a lot of us enjoy, which is maps, because it allows you to see the connections, which is primarily what we'll say for the purpose of this video abstraction does. And so let's just look at, we want to understand a little bit the land of Laura Ingalls Wilder. And so by doing that, we need to just look at, a little bit about the fundamental divisions in the land and how things are shaped, the land is shaped, and it might give us a better view of like Laura Ingalls Wilder's world. So let's just say this is a flat area, and I believe a lot of this is even cornfields and stuff like that. But you can notice this area, like the shapes of the land, the different farms, it's all like real haphazard. And if you go up here, okay, so if you keep zooming out here, you'll notice, we're in Delaware. Okay, so they have some weird shapes there in Delaware, their land, huh? I wonder why that is. Well, here, and I'm not going to say where this is yet, but this is like, you look at all this kind of land. It's like, wow, this is flat land. Look how squarey this is. That's really weird, huh? Why is it that some parts of the country are like that? And then if you go out a little bit, you notice, the squares just keep going on and on. You can just see those all across, and these highways even go along these squares for the most part and everything. And then you notice, anyway, this is Iowa. And then, what happened? What do we know? Well, we know Iowa came along a lot later than Delaware, obviously, because Delaware is like the first state, they say. And then I don't know what number Iowa is, but it's much further along. And then so there's this thing called the Northwest Ordinance of 1785 and 1787, which mostly had to do with these new areas that were coming into and how they were going to sell the land and stuff. And now this whole concept got extended further to a bunch of these other states, and I guess pretty much everywhere to the West Coast. I mean, even before they had sent anybody out there, they, in their mind, in an abstract way, they laid down this grid upon all these places, in a sense, kind of mentally brought order to the places, so it's like, and what they did is they came up with the townships was the main unit, so those were 36 square miles. It was 36, so it's 6 square miles on each side, and each one of these is called a section, each one of these parts. And then there's like the quarter section, which we'll get to later. But then when you get to the quarter section is, which would typically be like the piece of land that a lot of people, homesteaders, would be getting for free. It was like 160 acres. So that was, a lot of times that was like the smallest. Now you go like an 8th section, that would be the 40 acres that they mentioned, like. But anyway, but looking at this grid thing even more, and we'll be getting to Walnut Grove really soon. This is the plat map here, okay. And if I go down to Minnesota here, now let's go down to Redwood County, which is the county that Walnut Grove is in, and the famous place on Plum Creek. And then if we go down here, now we get into townships, which for the most part, all the townships here are still like squares like that. Maybe they didn't change the townships. Some places they may have actually changed the townships, but it looks like mostly here in southern Minnesota, they did not change the townships. And then we want to go, okay, so let's go down here a little further here, and let's find Walnut Grove. So let's see, okay, here's Walnut Grove here. Okay, so the town has kind of been split up into different pieces that it was maybe like just part of like these different sections, and obviously there's lots of properties, but once you go out into the farmland, these are the actual parcels, so you can see, okay, this square here, this is one of the original sections, which you can see is now 2 pieces. Here's one here that it looks like it's actually, what is it? This looks like it's 2 sections that later got combined by the same person into one property. So there's different ones. So sometimes people would add together and get a bigger property than that they started with, and sometimes they would sell part off, especially a strategic part that maybe had something important that's worth some money. It all just depended if a person had a lot of money, but typically, a section is usually would be the size land that you would get back in those days. So you can see here, like this piece of land here, this guy here, he, let's see, for instance, okay, he just sold off basically just like his old farmhouse here, but the rest of the land he sold to somebody else, maybe like a nearby farmer or something. Now, this here is, if we go to this area here, it's kind of interesting. It kind of looks like a dove or something like that, some kind of bird, but right here is a dugout where you can go to see the original Ingalls dugout. one of the places where the glaciers came down the latest, and it goes down to like into a good part of Iowa. It's mostly in Iowa, and now that part of Iowa, and I guess it was kind of like for a while kind of a swampy area and stuff like that. So it was one of the areas that, once they found a way to drain this stuff and everything, the fields, and then it became a super productive. But because of that, it became like part of Iowa, and I guess part of Minnesota that also got settled a little bit later than some of the other places. Is basically what the upshot of that. And also, and then once you get off of it, you'll probably see more rolling hills, and it won't be as like flat as this, So I mean, this is kind of rolling, but but anyway, so yeah, coming to you from the Duluth Lobe, or Des Moines Lobe. I always say that. Okay, coming into Walnut Grove. Just gonna do a little filming on the way in. See where the main attractions are. The first attraction is going to be trying to find a bathroom. Okay, here's one on the left side probably. This is probably let's see. Oh wait, another one here. Okay, let's just see whichever one looks bigger. I think that one.
There's that water tower.
What do you think about this bathroom on the right? Yeah, so here we are with Sarge here at the Laura Ingalls Wilder Museum and Visitor Center. Now it's actually closed here right now. I don't know. It doesn't say when it's actually opened. To analyze the experience at the gift shop and museum, let's look at the bottom right side of our quadrant here at the term archetype to understand this psychologically. And let's just think of archetype as being like a universal story, something that gets repeated again, something like the hero story or something, but it could be something more that we pasted onto like a more modern thing, like the pioneer or like the cowboy or the Western guy. And, these different things, like the actual stories of these people that came out here, and even the fictionalized stories like the book and then the movie can actually affect us in a way. Any of these stories, we can think about that even if, because it still reflects something that came from someone's mind and this universal story. And even something like, and we notice that even in her books, she makes it more archetypal. She makes Charles more of an archetypal pioneer who keeps going like further out each time, where in reality, he more bounced around a certain area, and then especially in the book and the movie as well. I mean, not the movie. Okay, in the series, like especially like, let's say the pilot, it was the thing where he kind of like, he goes out there and he finds this place. Oh, here we are, we're home. Nobody else is out there. When in reality, there was already people out there. They were all just scrambling to find this different stuff. Now, of course, he did have to go through, even though this is a little more organized than like the Oregon Express or like Daniel Boone, there still was a lot of danger they had to go through, of course, like they almost starved during the Great Winter. And then, of course, and the big, the locust, or not the locust, or when all their fields got destroyed by the grasshoppers. So all the dangers were real, and there was a lot of risk and ingenuity required, of course. I don't want to denigrate that, but we all get drawn by that archetype, and that's where we kind of interact with all these different stories of the past, and that's what makes his story interesting. Okay, here we are at Walnut Grove here. We're going through the Laura Ingalls Wilder Museum. There's a train track right there, so okay. Lucas here. Okay, so let's see. Map of where eggs were deposited by. Okay, so there was a railroad coming up to the booth by that point. Memorabilia or something.
Another house that has like scenery and stuff. Okay, so we got an old washing machine here. Some instructions on how to slaughter a pig. Okay, so this is more like military stuff here. Some old rifles. Okay, so this is about people from this town. Walnut Grove medal. Okay, they have a Medal of Honor recipient here at this. Old keyboard. Alrighty, so we got interesting jail cells. I guess at least you get kind of sunburn, huh? Oh, not like this was out in the open. This would have been inside the building. Okay. Okay, this is a simulation of a dugout. So it's kind of cool in here. It doesn't feel too bad. Maybe let's get busy. Oh. It actually feels kind of cool in here.
Did you go in that building over there?
Oh, not yet. I'm just taking the circle. There's a little red schoolhouse. Do not write on chalkboard. Rules and regulations. A lot of rules in this small little building. Settler's home. Okay, is this is a nicer one. Obviously didn't have that air conditioner back then. Pretty nice. Let's see. Bedroom, yeah. I guess it looks pretty nice, except for it would have had a bunch of kids, So if there's only one man and his wife, there'd be a lot of room. But if you had like 10 kids, that'd be a lot. That wouldn't be very big. Old printing presses. Grinding wheels. Many implements here. Interesting. Laura's first railroad town. Oh, by the way, I did get this book here because it looked like it might have it had a little more information as far as the land and stuff like that, some maps and a few things like that. Well, the world of Laura Ingalls Wilder. Yeah, that's because when I was doing these type videos, that's what I was kind of interested in, is stuff like the land and the history and what it kind of reflects about, you know. That's one of the old wagons. Okay, and I didn't notice this before. So this is a switchboard from 1903. So okay, they already had by 1903 they still had already a really sophisticated switchboard, you know. So this has been the printing press. Yeah. Thing for making posters. An old bank safe. Right, I guess it's just a door to it, not the, I guess.
The psychological explanation for our enjoyment of maps can usually be tied more to this idea of abstraction, but sometimes, especially with animated maps like this, you can really just get a sense of the flow across the land. I have this animated map, so this shows, like, you can see like railroads, and these red dots are post offices filling in these areas across Minnesota and stuff. And then here's a more zoomed in one. You can see that they weren't far from the Twin Cities, which are also growing a lot. Look here, here's a more zoomed in one. Yeah, but if you just look at it a little more carefully, you can see the railroads building up there, and it's just kind of interesting to see. The year they left for to Smet from Walnut Grove. So Walnut Grove is like here. You can see that like the railroad only went to Tracy. That was like 8 miles away or something. But in the books, she made it sound further. But in reality, it was only like 8 miles away. You can see the railroad had not been built yet, and so they moved over here during September. They moved over to Smet. Now they're over to Smet. 1880. Okay, you have this line, but then I think right after that was the year of the super big winter where they always starved, and so the railroad was shut down. So basically, like its inaugural year, I believe it got shut down. So, but anyway, but yeah, when you just take all these things into account, it makes it a lot more interesting when you visit places like this.
Oh, I guess I picked up a walnut from Walnut Grove. It was just here on the ground outside the museum here. I was just thinking this is kind of a neat view. This is kind of like this really flat, long street that kind of stretches onto infinity here with a nice canopy of trees going through. That's just kind of a nice view. Kind of nice there too, but especially here, it's like I like kind of that look. You know, you don't get that a lot of times, like that canopy kind of town, kind of canopy, kind of tree thing, and then you know, just like stretching on to infinity like that, you know. So it's like, you know. As far as the feeling of this place, I mean, obviously we mentioned Walnut Grove. Well, there you go. We're in a grove, just like we mentioned the other day, the archetype of the grove, and I don't know if that was named after one particular place or the whole place is sort of like a area with some trees here. But of course, a lot of these were all planted later, you know. So anyway, but whatever it is, I mean, that's what you have in some of these towns. Kind of like they have like that feeling of kind of like the oasis of kind of like, because okay, let's say it's a lot of open fields, farm town in a lot of these places, prairie or whatever. But then like in some town like Walnut Grove or a bunch of other towns like this where people have been here and they've like planted trees here, and it's got more of like that green kind of feel. So almost like you got to go to town to kind of get that more like that shady kind of feel of nature, almost in a sense, kind of ironically, you know. I mean, there might be some other trees in some other areas, some groves, but you know, but you have that, that open grove kind of feeling, you know, but kind of like the managed forest kind of thing. But yeah, so feels nice here today. It's pretty nice weather. We're gonna go down and actually see the Plum Creek thing in a second, but this is the monument. I guess they put it here because it's like the closest public place, public land that had the, you know, they could put the monument, I guess. But we're gonna actually go down and pay the money and go see the actual dugout.
See, though, their piece of land is pretty close to like the exact borders of like what the Ingalls family had, so it got sold a couple times, and it was a while before anybody noticed. This guy, whoever had it, noticed, oh, this property actually has something interesting on it that tourists would be interested in, you know. So anyway, but it passed through a couple different hands like that. So but you can see, yeah, these squares just really like kind of define, and they have these kind of numbers like this too. And I think these might actually be like the original numbers, but some places they did change the numbering system.
And then, yeah, so anyway, it's kind of nice out here. Nice farm country on a nice like kind of pretty nice day out. Nice, pretty mild day for the summer, you know. So. Okay, just got a film coming out. Coming to the Ingalls dugout site here. And now this is a privately owned, so it's like, you know, it's going to be like some kind of box where you got to pay. Of like a hill or something. Okay, you want to put $5, $10. Okay, so we're going to look for dugout ruins, the spring, the big rock, the tablelands, and the plum thickets. Okay, that's what we're going to be looking for. Okay. Okay, here we are at the plum. Here's a big parking lot here, and then there's a couple different things here. You can see with signs. You got to do a little walking around the little trail. What does it say up there? Okay, well, actually, we'll probably get closer to it. We'll walk up there. Okay. I think that's the dugout. Okay, here's a creek. And here you can see there's like some pretty big rocks. Oh yeah, it looks like you can see it could be, it probably gets deeper at times. This could be a nice little water hole. You have to kind of bend down. Actually, I guess I wonder if they ever did something. It wouldn't be that hard to like kind of lay some rocks and kind of make it deep, dam it up a little here, make it a little like nicer water hole. Yeah, it's kind of neat having like the water going through like the plain, cutting deep into the crust. There actually, okay, so yeah, so there actually is a lot of, this appears to be some type of igneous rock here. Like, oh wait, they said, oh that's right, I think they said there's glacier erratics. That's what there's in this area. Okay, yeah. Boulders that were carried from this. Yeah, this is pretty nice. It's a really nice day, nice wildflowers. It's kind of good that today is pretty cool and it's not a lot of bugs out and stuff. I can imagine it could be worse like on some days with a lot of bugs. Oh, real pretty wildflowers and stuff through there. Sarge likes this. Okay, so okay, yeah, this is basically all there is this depression here. Okay, so yeah, maybe so the hill, there might have been more of a hill here. You kind of dug in, you know, we don't know. A lot of this might have eroded, but okay, so but basically you find a place, you know, that's kind of on the side of the hill that's kind of at a right angle, and you can kind of dig into the hill and create a little shelter. Yeah, so we don't know what it looked like. There might have been more of a hill here, and then it might have kind of eroded, but anyway, this is where it was right here. So right near the top of this hill here. I guess, I don't know if this would be the tableland here. Two hiking trails to your left and your right. You'll see several. Okay, I don't know if the more interesting stuff is this direction. Let's see, I don't know. Ah. Ah, Jesus. Okay, yeah, I'm not sure there's much to see in that area. Okay. Okay. There's a couple trails that go up there along that field, but I don't know if there's a lot to see there, you know. Okay, so I wonder where the spring was. Let's see. Or if there's a sign showing that. Yeah, I gotta wonder what it was like back then. Where there may have been a trail here, maybe they would have crossed here, maybe. You know. Nice little grove area here. I'll walk down this area a little bit along the edge of the prairie here, and next to the river here, the creek. Yeah, this really has that feel, those wildflowers and the prairie. So obviously that corn wouldn't have been here, but this would have been like, this is quite possibly what this area could have looked like back in the day. But it's kind of nice because they're right, but then you can like walk along here, that would be right in the shade. You can find some shade along here too. You could like, back in the day, you could have hacked yourself out a little like area to hang out in the little grove there. It's kind of windy. That kind of helps too to keep like the bugs away, because that'd be the main downside for being back here at certain times of the year. You know, it would be the bugs, obviously.
The bees buzzing?
I
don't know where it's coming from.
Okay. Ooh. Kind of a hike, but that's fine. You always could use some exercise here. Ooh. Yeah, this will get us back to that loop up there, like up to that top of the hill there. Ooh. Yeah, definitely getting a little hot up in this area, but for the most part, this is like great summer weather today, so, you know. Ooh, just beautiful shot here of these wildflowers down here. Prairie there. Now let's just compare this to whenever we're going to go out there to Smet, you know, like. Oh, okay, here we go. Here's an interpretive sign. We like the interpretive signs. Helps me to interpret things. Oh, cool, okay. So here we got the different plants that we got here. So, prairie spiderwort, seems like that's a pretty popular one. Yeah, very cool. Coolio, cool in the gang. So we did all that walking up there, but actually it looks like there's some other stuff that's much closer here as far as like significant stuff with, you know, that's closer, you know, to the parking spot here. My dog is drinking from Plum Creek here. And this is, I guess this isn't the actual rock, but the actual big rock, but this is kind of similar. There's this rock you can kind of sit on here. They said that other rock's actually gone, but I guess there was like another rock that was up the bank a little bit. Oh, it feels pretty nice. I can imagine it could be pretty nice on a summer day back then. Just imagine what it would have been like, you know, just like on a hot summer day coming down here, sitting on this rock here. Just like, oh, it's just so peaceful. Nice clean creek here. Maybe they had a dog. Maybe that Jack, I don't know if that Jack was here or whatever. They probably had some kind of dog. And yeah, it's just, he likes the water. Yeah, he's like, even if he's not a swimmer, he still want to enjoy just being by the creek. And this goes back to our thing before about, yeah, the kind of like the grove archetype, about kind of like the open, like, area that's like under trees. It's like, you know, like this. It's, you know, just a real peaceful, yeah, really peaceful river here. It's pretty cool, actually. Could go walk across this real quick, as long as no one's around. I mean, there's no rule against it. I mean, all right. Like, okay. Oh. Ah, you gonna come in, buddy? He wants to come in to see his dad, but he's a little afraid of this. Yeah, it might be a little bit. But it's not. Now, who knows? It might get the current. Yeah, it probably gets much higher whenever it rains. You know, so yeah. So at different times, but yeah, just Beautiful creek here. Okay. Just beautiful trees. And it's kind of nice to contrast because we're right here in the middle of open prairie, what would have been open prairie, except for, whatever, open areas, whether it's fields or, and it's just, but the nice shady place next to like the field. Oh, look at how the water just flows like that in a perfect kind of vortex or whatever. Look at that. The beauty of the flow. The beautiful flow, like we like to emphasize on my channel, like about the beautiful flow of nature, Look at that. Isn't that cool? It's really cool looking. It's just really a peaceful, so this is really a peaceful spot to analyze it because of the archetypal information, because of the stories of Laura and all that kind of stuff. And then, but also, objectively, just what it's like, so it has like two different things, this is really just like, just a great moment to remember, one of those things, great peaceful moment.
How are you going to dry your feet off before you put them back in your shoes?
Well, they'll dry pretty quick. Man, I wouldn't even stop anyway. Huh. Yeah, so, okay, yeah, Monroe. Yeah, I don't know. So I guess this is where the train came, I guess. Okay. We'll assume that is. Okay. Okay, but we think that this place here is like Tracy, that this is like where the link, that'd be the station where they would have stopped here and then taken their coach the rest of the way. At least we think, but maybe not. I'll have to look up later and see what the story with this thing is here. Okay. All right, here me and Patrick, we're getting close to the state line. This is the part called the Coteau de Prairie. It's a part that's more uplifted. I think it was already uplifted before, but then when the last ice sheet came through, you had anyway, it was one of the areas that did not get hit by that last ice sheet. Because of that, I guess, but then the ice sheets on both sides pushed up these blocks of ice that became the lakes or something like that. I didn't quite understand that. But anyway, it's a more hilly area that's after you go west from, and it's still, the Smet is still in the Coteau de Prairie, but it's getting near the edge of it. But basically, so it's a more hilly area, and it's also got a whole bunch of these lakes, so much more like hilly and a lot more lakes than Walnut Grove. So this is what keeps going. And the two lobe areas, James Slope to the west of it and the Des Moines Lobe to the east of it, those areas have lots of glacial till and have very thick, good soil. And I think this area, Coteau, may also have pretty good soil as well, but I'm not really sure how exactly that compares. But I think that those, but especially because they got scoured those areas, but also very flat as well. We'll see a little bit about them in a few minutes. As a division are one of the main things we like, this abstract beauty that we find in things. So if we look at geology here, you can see that probably right around Walnut Grove somewhere. And then so mostly not that it really matters too much because it's so deep, but you'd be going over Cretaceous bedrock and then this other place, okay, Precambrian, which is more similar to what you have up here in Duluth. But so if you were to dig down, or maybe there might be a place with a shallow rocky outcropping, but as you can see from this map, there might be a few places across here where the bedrock is shallow enough that maybe you could find what you could hope to find is these shark teeth, Cretaceous age shark teeth, which in a way, if I found that, which I didn't, but then I'd be connected to this place down in Aberdeen, Mississippi, along the river there once, where we found some shark teeth in the same type of age sediments there, So anyway, yeah, and then if you want to go into here now, one thing, these lines of division, okay, so Walnut Grove is somewhere in here, then you go across this thing, Coteau de Prairie, and I think you're pretty much still in it, like in Smet, which is the second place they lived, but that was, but maybe you're getting near the edge, but basically it's a real kind of like hilly area that has a bunch of these lakes, and it has to do with like the Des Moines Lobe was over here and the James Lobe. So these were like, this was the Laurentine ice sheet when it came through. So it came through here, and there's always already some high ground here. So it kind of split up. So these areas got really scoured and made even flatter. And I think also it had to do with like the ice push, like blocks of ice that became like these kettle lakes into there or something. It's something like that was my understanding. And you can see here, the Coteau de Prairie. Now we kept mentioning these lines of
vision. But now on maps and in reality, there's an idea of flow that we, in our mind, we enjoy thinking about things flowing or seeing things flowing. So you can kind of like, if you drive through here sometimes, you can kind of look to the northeast and kind of imagine like this ice sheet coming through. And then if you get over here too, but especially go through this area before you get to the big hills, then you might be able to see stuff like the moraines. You might be able to imagine and see like, oh, like where these ridges that were built up by the ice coming through here, these moraines, and then anytime you see any kind of like rocks by themselves not attached to bedrock, that's pretty. Yeah, I think that's all got to be all basically moved by the glaciers, but then also because the glaciers along here, but I guess still along here, it's like but definitely in this area, it's the glacial till where the soil is very, very fertile and very thick, and so it's very like, glaciated areas like Illinois, northern Illinois, like the bedrock, it's very good farming, but there's very little bedrock because of the glacial till over it, or what we call dirt, but anyway, but then if you go back and look on this, you can see here more evidence of this Cote de Prairie, this whole lake thing, and then let's see, I think, so Smet's about here, so by the time you get over here, I think you're kind of getting out of the Cote de Prairie, but then the heart of it, you just got a bunch of these kettle lakes, and here was the original site of the Ingalls family dugout. And then you can also look at stuff like river valleys. The main river is the Minnesota River as far as in Walnut Grove, the Smet off the map here. But you can see there's ones like the Cottonwood River that are real important, which the blue one, that's the Cottonwood River. There's the Redwood River and different ones like that. And then you can also think about lines of division as far as culturally, as far as it looks like according to this map, you'd say that the Smet is probably still within this darker blue or maybe near the edge, but then definitely the rest of Minnesota and Walnut Grove was basically, we'd say, under the cultural hegemony of Yankeedom, of people from movers and shakers, and then a lot of other like regular people moving from New England, along with a bunch of other like immigrants too. But as far as the main like native group, it would be mostly like New Englanders, So, and we know that, like, for instance, Charles Ingalls, he helped found a congregational church. So that's super Yankee New England. So you can think about these lines of division. So you can think about, besides the weather, that if you had, like, let's say people, in pioneers, even though it's a little bit later period, pioneers to Oklahoma and some of these areas, well, they're basically, you think about, they're more from Appalachia, so they were kind of like a much kind of culturally different kind of people, that more southern and Appalachian down in this area than, let's say, like the Midland type area. There's a lot of similarities between the different pioneers. You can kind of think about the different ones, like the Yankee pioneer versus the Appalachian pioneer, Southern pioneer, however people want to say it. And then we could also look at rainfall and just say that, like, okay, where they were in Independence, it was kind of this blue area. So already in Minnesota, you're starting out with like less rain than they were when they were down in Independence. And then as you get further west into the Smet, the amount of rain drops off pretty good. And then if you keep going really further west, then it gets really like dry. But so this is probably still where the part where there's still enough rain where the agriculture is probably still pretty good. A little bit of a video here of now that we're in South Dakota. We're getting near to Smet, and we're kind of in that lake country where I guess they were saying like the AI was saying like they're glacial kettle lakes or something. I guess basically from the ice that gets trapped in the areas, and maybe a lot of times they're but yeah, if I can't see it right now, okay, yeah, but a lot of times they don't have like they're not they're like closed basins and like don't drain very much either, a lot of them, but and a lot of times they're shallow too, but there's a lot of them, and some are good for fish too. But I did read too that I just see the AI was telling me too that sometimes they'll stock the thing, sometimes there will be an ice out, but then like they stock them, and those type of lakes will sometimes come back really quickly with fish, so it's kind of an interesting thing. Anyway, let's see if we get a little better shot of like. So we don't know if we're going to go to the homestead, depending on what we run into. I guess we'll either go to what's in the town first or what's in the homestead first, as far as seeing like the Laura type sites, the Laura related sites, the little house sites. Oh, there's another cell phone booster deal. So that we're probably coming in to Smet pretty soon. Oh, there's another big lake there. Yeah, so some of these are pretty big lakes. but usually how it'd be numbered from up here, So let's see. Then now, if you want to go to something that's interesting, a really interesting part of it is the idea of the school section. Now, this is Pioneer Girl blog who wrote that, and now it was section 16, and I think they said it was originally 36 and a later, but basically what it was designated for, and it actually is in the original order that they actually had the foresight to think that, okay, that was reserved for public education. Now, it's a pretty general thing, so I think there might have been some places where they actually did build some schoolhouses in those sections, but most of the time it was just supposed to be the money from it, but a lot of times it didn't get sold for a long time, the land, and I don't know, and then maybe it didn't always get used for its exact purpose, but that was the theory behind it. So, but in some places for a while it did not get sold, and it became basically like a common land, and although they say that it wasn't really legal to harvest anything, a lot of times people just did it did it anyway, and so they would, like the people so I guess that the Wilder family, this is back when Laura Almanzo and Laura, they had a piece of land here in Smet, like on both sides of this school section, and you could go in there and collect wheat or lumber, or whatever, maybe not lumber, but anyway, but you could basically kind of use it for some grazing and stuff like that. So it was kind of a nice place to be, kind of like some extra land to be next to, so it's like, but so it was kind of an important concept. But this is all across America. You can think like there's might be similar people in all these, like almost like these checkerboards across America. Maybe there'll be another like A.G. Wildy or something like that. Or here now, okay, but now if we go into South Dakota, look for this evidence of this school section thing. What we find is, okay, now let's see if we can find evidence of this school zone, the school section here back in Smet. So if we look just north of the town here, okay, then indeed this section here, and by the way, if I didn't say it before, a section is also, it's going to be a mile on each side. So if you lived out here in the country and you're a jogger, that makes it really easy for you, because it's a square mile, and you can see it still has a 16 number on it. So this whole thing was the school thing. So you can see it got sold at some point, and this section looks like it's just owned by one person. This one, not section, okay, it looks like each one of these quarter sections is 160 acres is still owned by one person. But you can see this one got split up into a couple smaller pieces, and then and then down here, okay, this would have been part of Almanzo's land here. Now, you click on that, you can see, okay, so actually his original section, oh, that's what it looks like happened. Okay, yeah, so actually what happened is somebody actually bought this. Maybe, okay, we'll have to check that. Maybe it was actually the city this might be a city airport. Yeah, so you can see why they combined those two sections to make you can see why they combined those two quarter sections instead of making it like what it originally was, because to make a long enough path for an airport. So that's pretty interesting. Back in Almanzo and Laura's old land is this airport. I'll have to look that up later about that. And then you can see then his other piece that land down here, you can see is it's been split up into like about 4 different pieces here. It looks like there's a business here. I think a lot of times it seems like, yeah, they sell like the parts like right on the corner of the roads, because I guess that's valuable land, but maybe not going to be so important. Maybe it's not going to be as important to the farmer. Well, anyway, I mean, obviously, if you're looking for like a part that's really valuable that somebody wants to, you're a farmer, you can do whatever kind of farming stuff on any of these other parts. You don't need that piece of land there, So it's like, yeah, you can either make that, so those would be places for some kind of business. And and then this land here, which would have maybe been the place where he would try to take his animals grazing in these areas or whatever, get some extra hay.
Yeah. Okay, so here we are at the homestead location here in Smet. Now, some of the stuff like the church but it got moved, and you can go on a hay ride. We're not doing that today and stuff, but at least we're getting, but at least we're getting a feel for what the land looks like and stuff. And there's a tower there. Okay, we can't go over there, so we can just go over. Let's just walk over this way, see what we can see of like how close I get to that cottonwood area. Okay. Okay. This would have been where Charles planted those cottonwood trees, and well, I could go up. That's part of the fenced off pay area, so we won't go there right now. But it's probably anyway some kind of monument. Anyway, so yeah, and I think they said that these were like descended from like the 5 that he planted here before from that one tree. That it was like that one tree that's between like Lake Thompson and the other lake. So anyway, yeah. But anyway, yeah. Okay, well, it was somewhere around here the cottonwood tree story thing happened. Alright, let me just get to the end of this thing. Oh, what is this one? Okay, so here's like this wetland. So it looks like maybe more of this area here. I guess that's what's left of Silver Lake. It looks like this area down here. You know, not just kind of a not very deep lake as you can see now, but all this area here, this wetlands, I think that was probably all part of the lake. So the lake was bigger than for some reason they had drained it down or whatever, or you know, whatever as part of the wildlife management or whatever, you know. So you know, anyway, so yeah, but more of it, the lake, I don't know exactly what part of the lake like that guy lived, where his cabin was or whatever, but you know, anyway, there's also this business here too, so there's a lot of business along here. There's not a lot of public access to it, but I think that's like some wildlife management deal. This 30-day YouTube mini-series is a psychological experiment using Jungian psychology to live better and experience more this summer. I'm not a psychologist, just a layman looking to apply Jungian principles to life. I'm starting with the idea that the unconscious mind is very smart and tells us things. And believing in this, I drove up to Hibbing, Minnesota, and I found that 4 locations in Hibbing, Minnesota corresponded quite well to 4 different principles called the Hibbing Quaternity. The first one is the Hibbing Ghost Town, which the characteristics is you feel the echo of the past as the wind flows down established paths. This represents unconscious voice being in the center of a moving circle, the mother archetype, home, center, castle, etc. Character I'm coming up with here to explain it is Nellie, the ghost sheepdog mom who circles the area, protects and guides. The Greyhound Museum has to do with travel and also the Jungian idea of beauty as a way of mentally feeling your way into physical objects and flowing into life in general, flowing beauty, mentally becoming part of the object. The character here I'm coming up with is Flows With It, which is a Native American cartoon character who has a magic canoe, finds all paths, glides over, portages, flows into life. Now the ore pit, it represents awe, the smallness of the individual, abstraction, and the way in making the world simpler, more understandable. Actions, the beauty of symmetry, the beauty of maps, beauty of mathematics. And this is supposed to be Laser Nash. Doesn't look like him that much, but anyway, it's like John Nash with his cup sending out all these laser beams across, dividing the world, trying to find that order in the chaos from A Beautiful Mind, if you haven't seen that movie. Bob Dylan's home. It represents stories, archetypes, wishing to become someone else. DJ Hat Trick, what he does is he gets people into the groove by putting different hats on and sending people into different paths. It's sort of like the way we do whenever we listen to a song, for example. Here's a simplified view of the Quaternity here that I'm going to be using for this 30-day adventure. And this is what it's going to more look like. I'm just going to do a simple sketch that I'll put in the video and then just kind of explain it like on a notepad like this to make it simpler so I can get it done. So I can do a video for 30 days. And so subscribe to get all 30 of those videos.